Welcome to Let's Go Live. I'm Gigi Meyer, and I have with me architect, blogger, and nonfiction author, Karen Webb. Welcome, Karen.
Thank you. Hi, Gigi. How are you?
I don't know if I have enough titles for you.
Oh, I know. It's too many titles, but it's okay. It's an evolution. It's really, let me fix this light. Yeah, it's an evolution, though. Mm-hmm.
No, it's awesome, though, because you have so much going on. And so I know that normally I interview authors, and authors have a ton going on. But you're really a true entrepreneur. And so I find that so fascinating. I have I think I have 35 questions.
Oh,
Not that we'll get
right. Okay, that's exciting.
We
that's
won't
great.
Get to all of them, but we can get pretty close.
Yeah, that's great.
Okay, so let's talk first on the author side. And so you tell me about your first book.
Well, so this is actually my second, right? So the first book was the first book was Architect Your Epic Life, and it really was, it was meant to be kind of a smaller book. It was more of a cathartic thing for me to write, just having gone through, a marriage I thought was going to last forever, the whole kind of cheating, betrayed, and everything in my life kind of turning upside down. And it was a little bit about just how to get through that. And I really compared life building to home building. And that was kind of the beginning of me being an author, was really relating it to architecture. That's
so ingenious, though, right? Because, we all want to build a home. That's part of the American dream.
Yes.
So home ownership, although now interest rates are crazy, and I think the millennials are like, heck with that.
I think they are. Yeah, I think that's not part of their dream anymore. No, sadly, but yeah.
But so tell us a little bit about that, because I find that fascinating how you can compare the two.
Yeah, so as an example, like when I'm doing a new home, let's say, you look at what's there on the site, what is working, what you want to keep, what is not, what might be in the wrong spot. Like, for example, I had a project years ago, and they wanted a whole new home, but they wanted to keep the pool, and the pool location was just not working. No matter what I did with the floor plan, it just was in the wrong spot.
Like in the center, and you're having to do around it?
Yes, and it wasn't that kind of a pool, and it didn't work. And it was facing the wrong way in terms of the light, and it was all around not working, because the rooms that would be off of it were wrong because of the sun exposure. So it was kind of like assessing that and finally deciding, thinking that it should be built around this pool, and then finally deciding that is what's not working. And the minute I got rid of that and just said, we're going to demo it and we're going to build a new one in a different location, that pool was so dilapidated, it would have been just as costly to fix it, or close to the same. And then once I removed it in the plan, it just worked beautifully. So I think that there are some things that we think are kind of, fixtures in our lives that we're not willing to look at and possibly consider something else. For me, I always thought I would forever stay in Huntington Beach, where I lived, and in the home that I'd raised my kids in. And that was not even, like, anything different was not okay. Even after my divorce, that's the one thing I kept. He took everything else. And I was like, I want this house because it's home base and it mattered to me.
Yeah.
But then in this relationship that I had started with my now husband, I had never thought of, what if I sell the house and move with him? Moved cities, etc., and then we eventually moved to Arizona. But I had not even had that consideration. It was like that pool. It was keeping me stuck, without, and sometimes you have to start just looking at the components in your life and moving them and seeing what fits and what no longer works for you.
No, I love that, because I feel like we as society want stability, and we put stability in our job. We tell everybody what we do. So, that's the societal norm, is like, oh, Karen, what do you do for a living? That's like the first thing we ask at any
always, right? Yes, it is. It is.
And like, that means you're worth anything. I hate that. I don't ask anyone what they do because I don't care.
Yeah, exactly. That's very true. Yeah. But it is. It's like, those are the things we want, that stability. And you know, we just have to sometimes what we think is the thing that is giving us that stability is actually what's holding us back from future, you know, newfound stability that might make us happier, bring us closer to our joy.
No, I totally agree with you, because divorce, I've been through it myself, and it is
Yes.
absolutely devastating and heartbreaking, right? And so
Yes.
you do. I mean, I would hope no one goes into their vows and be like, this thing may end. Yeah. Yeah.
That would be awful. That would not be good. Yeah, you're right, though. You think it's going to last, and then you just don't know. I mean, especially, I was married very young to my then husband, the one I had my kids with. It just, now looking back, there's so many issues. I mean, clearly we could have gotten through them, but clearly his, you know, the affair didn't quite help. So that was the end of that. But
We don't share.
not a lot coming back from that. No. Yeah.
But I think that's true, because we can't think of marriages ending, or we can't think of things that are painful or devastating or heartbreaking, right?
Right.
But life will do that for you. You know, there's like, okay, there's sad situation of the wildfires in Miami. You know, people are losing everything.
Oh, I know.
But, you know, maybe they made it out with their life. And
Yeah.
so you think that tragedy, you know, they say there's a phrase, you know, beauty for your ashes. And I truly believe that, right? Because it's like,
Yeah.
when we're unable to move forward, God or life will move you forward. And
Exactly.
then what do you
Yeah.
do, right?
Right.
You have, that's your response right then. I mean, you can cry, but at some point,
Yeah.
you got to pick yourselves up by your bootstraps and move forward, however forward is.
Right. And if we kind of just wait for life to, you know, send us whatever it's going to send us, we're not really proactive then in creating our own life. So that's the other thing. It's like, do you want to sit there and let the house just keep getting dilapidated and falling apart and not being right, but you're like, I don't want to deal with it? Or, you know, do you look at it and go, okay, before it gets horrible, I want to do something about it. And that is, you know, that's the same with our lives. We have to just look at it and say, is this the best it can be? And if it's not, even if it's just kind of working, is that really good enough? Or should we, you know, remodel our life to make it what we really want?
And I agree with you. I mean, it's so challenging to make sweeping changes.
Yes.
And people usually don't, right? They'll do
Right.
like
They
baby
don't.
steps. Like every January, the gym is loaded with people and all the resolutions.
Yes.
And, you know, by February, they're gone.
Yep.
Right?
Absolutely.
And so I think when life brings you the sweeping changes, that's how it happens. It could be a job transfer. It could be a layoff. It could be a divorce. You know, it could be a death. I mean, there's such
Yes.
variety.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, you don't know what's coming, and you have no idea. And so and people do sit in that, I call it, you know, that just complacent spot. They just sit with that. And I think we're so used to only following what is comfortable for us, and what's comfortable is what's familiar. So you just live in that, like at the house, you live in that house with the ugly couch because it's comfortable and you've been there and it's okay. You know, you don't have to get used to something new. But that's not, you know, my motto has always been, you have to really live life with gusto. You've got to start one shot at this. So like make it the most incredible it can be. And so maybe that we have to get outside of our comfort zone to find that new kind of joy.
But don't you think, though, that it's easier for people to find it when they have a traumatic event? Like when you've gone through, like losing a child, which is the worst thing that could ever happen in the world, right?
Yeah.
Number one, divorce, losing a house, you know, that kind of thing. I feel like once you've had a significant, just life-altering loss, then you're a little bit more nimble.
That's true. I think you're more nimble, but I also think, which is kind of what happened to me, was you just start looking inward for answers. You're like, what in the world happened? And then, you know, you're looking for an answer, and whether it's going to come from your enlightenment by, you know, looking for things and figuring it out and just opening yourself up to new thoughts. And that's the key. But I don't know. I really don't know what my life would have turned out like had everything stayed kind of fine and, you know, copacetic in that marriage. So I am thankful now, not at the time. And I'm not thankful for how hard it was for my kids. But but yeah, I do think some kind of loss or just life-altering event that makes you it just throws you completely. That's when you start looking, yeah, and you start making changes.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah, that's what it propels you
right,
forward.
right.
So in writing that book, was it cathartic for you?
Very. It was very cathartic. Yeah, it was really cathartic. I loved writing it. It just sort of flew right out of me. It's weird. I hardly remember sitting and writing. I mean, with that book, it's weird. Yeah, I think I just needed to get all that out there and kind of process it in my head. And it was more cathartic than anything else. And it did a hybrid kind of publicist picked it up, and but it's small, and I didn't really. It's personal and it's small and it's kind of what it needed to be.
Right.
And then that led me to, more change happening, more kind of enlightenment, or, processing everything and coming to new, like understanding things a little differently. That led to this book, which I think the timing for it is really, really right. And yeah, and it's more important, I think. So I think it encapsulates a lot for a lot of women.
Okay,
So, yeah.
so tell us about book 2 and the
So
title. I know that you've
yes.
been back and forth, and
Oh my
I
goodness.
love the title.
Yeah. So I've been back and forth on the title. So I think I'm set, but you never know, right? Until publicists start messing with it. But it is called Unapologetically Naked, One Woman's Journey Behind the Feminine Veil. So, and I think what started, I'm not really sure when, how this book even started in my head, but it's been a long time coming. This book has been in the works with me probably, gosh, I want to say at least 4 years. Yeah, and just refining and, getting the thoughts clear and crystallized. Yeah. And yeah, so this book is it's really an exploration of what it means to be feminine in today's society. And that, as young girls, we're kind of expected to be a certain way. And it still is that way today. We're still expected to be a certain way. And I call it that's like society's veil that they put on us, which is, you've got to be tender and gentle and nurturing and non-confrontational. Demure, exactly. Demure says it all. And even though you may be raging with feelings of anger or whatever, you have to have that veil. They don't see, you're not supposed to show that. That's supposed to be kept behind there, because that's not what society's expectation of women is. And this book is a lot about really looking at what that is, realizing that it's very childlike, and it's hard for most women to take that sense of femininity into their adult life, because, everybody sees that as weak. Men and women start to see femininity as weak. And I think that's the predominant thought, and it's so wrong, because our femininity is so powerful, and not only for what it does for us, but it has the power to do so much. And right now, especially, this culture just wants to kind of eradicate genders in general. They're like, don't be that masculine, don't be that feminine, be kind of non-gender in between. And I think that's a big mistake. And so when women, they look at how can I be feminine now as an adult, as like, a badass at work, or, whatever, they think they can't be. And I think as women kind of got into the workforce, and I think as the feminist movement changed, the original feminist movement was phenomenal, in my opinion. It got us the right to vote and to choose what we wanted, and we could have a life separate from our man or our children.
Yeah.
We became like a person. But now this one is not. This one is about kind of denouncing that femininity as too weak, and we need to kind of man up and be as tough as the men. And I don't believe that's right. And I think what we need to do then is redefine femininity as grown-ass women. Like, you're a grown-ass woman, but you can still be feminine, but it can't be that childlike, behind the veil, demure. It's got to be something different. And this book is my journey through that, to where I finally felt like I found that. I understand it so much better, and I see its true value.
Well, I find that fascinating because you are in a very male-dominated industry.
Yes, very male dominated. It
And
is. It's
so, and you know, and I came from a very male-dominated
yes,
industry
right. You
also.
did.
So I understand fully what you say. I feel like women in those industries have to work 10 times harder because we are
Mhm.
not on the golf course, you know, slapping backs, drinking beer, and getting a hole in one, and then meeting at the clubhouse, you know, on the 19th hole.
Yep, you're absolutely right. And it's interesting because I went to graduate school for my master's in architecture, and I'd say 50% of the class was women, which is, in hindsight, I'm like, how in the world?
That's a
Because
lot.
it's a lot, but like, I think I'm one of the few that is still an architect. So they all kind of, venture off to interior design or graphic
Oh,
design
yeah.
because it's less intimidating when you finally get into the workforce with these, the boys club of
Yeah.
contractors and even engineers, but contractors are the toughest one. And I think so the reality of being an architect starts to look too tough for women. And that's unfortunate because we're only 17%. I mean, we're barely present. We barely have,
Oh.
I know, we're barely there at 17% in this society now, when you think we're all so modernized and yeah, it's crazy. But I do think it took, it's funny because architecture school was also, even though there were a lot of women, you could not be that feminine. You could not. Like the women took on that masculine energy. They didn't wear makeup. They looked, grungy. That was the look. You had to be scholarly. Everyone wore black. It was just a thing. Yeah, that was like, oh, the starving artist or scholar. It's so annoying. But it took me until a few years of being an architect and feeling confident in my work. And then I was like, I'm done with that. The feminine side is what really, you can be a phenomenal boss as a feminine, with your feminine energy.
Yeah.
You're not like, I don't know, you're not like on top of your employees kind of harping away. You're their mentor, you're uplifting them, you're nurturing them. And I found that there's a lot of space for a feminine energy to really come into that workplace. So, but it is not easy and it's not the norm.
Oh, no.
No.
Well, let me ask you, though, for those that are watching, what does that mean for feminine energy? What are some
Yeah.
productive examples of that?
So yeah, that's a great question. So feminine energy, we all have feminine and masculine energy within everybody. That is just part of the human psyche and our nature. But and balancing them is super important. There are places for each, right? So feminine energy is nurturing and healing and intuitive and non-confrontational still, but gentle and nurturing and caregiving. That is really the feminine side. And we are much more sensual. We're aware of our senses. We all of those things. The creativity also tends to be a feminine side. So that's the feminine side, whereas the masculine energy is really, it's much more logic driven, not intuitively driven. It's very linear. It doesn't have room for that kind of sensual senses and all of that. It's just much more, direct. And what I find with the feminine energy is that creativity is phenomenal in the workplace, that nurturing side for employees as well as clients to kind of, I work with clients where they're building a new home. That is one of the biggest things, in your life. That is like
Biggest
one of your
investment.
biggest purchases, right? I mean,
Mhm.
huge.
Yep.
And so, yeah, and nurturing clients along that way is great. Yeah, and I also think there's something to be said for the competitiveness that is very a masculine energy, and we all have some of that, but there's a lot to be said for the collaborative part that is feminine energy. So balancing them is pretty great at work. That's really what should happen. It's a little different when you get to relationships. And they kind of have to adjust a little bit there. They have a different kind of impact when it gets to relationships. But in terms of work, it's certainly, I think, a beautiful thing to start bringing your feminine energy to work, because people then enjoy their jobs more, and you're really uplifting people.
I think that's true. Does your book cover relationships, or is it only the business world?
No, it's both. I would say, I'd say the majority is relationships and just life in general.
Yeah.
Kind of how we go through our lives and the changes that happen to us. And I do that through, they're all like these intimate stories that the whole thing is done. There's this overriding thought, right? This overriding thing about femininity and having to redefine it for ourselves as women rather than childlike. But then it's sprinkled with all these intimate stories. And so there's a lot there, and what that does to you. And I have stories on that. And yeah, so, and some are truly embarrassing, and that's okay. I can handle it because it's all in the effort of being naked, being really truthful, being as honest and exposed as you can be to share that insight. And, you know, it brings the reader along with me in that thought process of how you finally come to, because you finally come to this kind of wholeness. I think we're all very fragmented as women because now that we're in the workforce, we've got to be tough, etc. But then we're raising kids and we're supposed to be the nurturing soft one, right?
Right.
I think we feel fragmented, and this really helps bring this newfound sense of femininity that is not weak. It's very strong. It's very smart, but it's also, it brings that wholeness to you, because that's in all of us. Women are, that's the beauty of being a woman, is really having that nurturing side.
It's a good point that you make, though, because when you work, and my background is corporate America, and so I was the C-suite executive, and so yeah, it is a lot of masculine energy for the industry I was in. And then you have the you have the like decompress and transition, because you can't be that way with your children. And so it was so funny because my son mentioned it the other day. He's like, used to burn the house down sometimes. You know, if you have a bad day at work, he's like, you would come home. And I was just like, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Right. And you can't blame yourself for that, because you're leaving work with that. It's hard to switch gears. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I was not only, well, I think I was one of, like, there's two females finally.
Wow.
But I was the youngest by 15, 20, 25 years.
Oh, wow.
From my other chiefs in the room.
Yes.
And so when my son said that, I was kind of so sad. And he's like, well, Mom, you haven't raised your voice since, you've become an author. And I was like, well, hallelujah.
Right. I know. And I think that what I have found so interesting, and this I talk about it in the book too, is that, I feel like, so a lot of the women that probably read your books are looking for that alpha male, right?
Yes.
I think they want that alpha male, right? They want that strong, like the characters you have. I mean, they don't want this wimpy man, right? They want that.
Your book boyfriend can be all the horrible things about men. They can be morally gray, they can be excessive. But, when you talk to readers, they're like, I would never date that guy. I would never marry that guy. But, in fantasy land.
Exactly. So what they like, though, they like certain things of that character. What I think they are liking, what I've seen, is they like that strength, though.
Yeah.
They like that kind of, they don't want the mean side. But they want that strength of character. And they want to, I think most women want to feel protected, even though they don't need it, right? Like to enjoy being protected doesn't mean I fall apart when you don't protect me. That's not the same thing. But we enjoy that just by nature. That's how women are. And there's something to be said for having that in your home life. So when you leave the work life and you come home, if you're looking for that strong kind of alpha male that's going to be protective and have good character and honorable and, you know, also makes you feel way more turned on than the wimpy man, right? I mean, I'm just speaking for me, but that alpha male wants a feminine woman, because they're very they're very in and in tune with their masculine energy, and that works beautifully with somebody very much in their feminine energy. If you're both in that masculine energy, you will butt heads, and that's just a fiery, not in a good way, volatile relationship. So I needed to learn that, because I think, like some strong women, we think we should look for a less strong man so they don't control us. We don't want to be controlled. We're like, no, 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 I do it all better. I've got it. We don't want them to control us. So we think, I'm going to go for the weaker man, right? But that doesn't work in the end.
You don't have
no.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it doesn't work, because in the end, you look at them and you don't have that, like, you just don't have that feeling of like respecting them and, you know, feeling protected by them. You feel like the dude also in the relationship, you know, and that, for most women, that's not what they're really looking for.
Well, yeah, you know, that dichotomy, because then if you don't respect them, you'll run right over them. And that's what strong women do, right?
Yes, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So when they have some of that feminine side, or they're leading kind of with a lot of feminine energy, which makes them, you know, appear not as strong, not as controlling, but then we bring more of our masculine energy. So you're right. We trample all over them. And then we go, okay, I'm going to have a strong man. I don't want this. But you kind of did it, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's also on the flip side of that. It's why, you know, when you see like Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, has these little girls and he's doing a tea party with them, and they're putting on his makeup, or I think they had like David Beckham and his daughter was putting on doing his makeup, or, you know,
I've seen that. Yep.
And it's so sweet, because, you know, you have these guys that are masculine, kind of, you know, The Rock obviously is burly.
Yes.
But yet they can, you know, let their feminine side show, and that's how they do it. These beautifully, orchestrated relationships with their, you know, daughters.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. No, I think that is that's when it's really beautiful, because because they're comfortable, because they're leading with their masculine, but they can show the soft side, you know, when they want to and need to. So, yeah, I think that makes kind of the best. That's the best combination, really.
So where are you at then in book 2?
So
are you writing it? Is it done?
No, it's written. I think it's done. I know. I am editing for myself taking, you know, how many times to go through it. I mean, I could make myself nuts. I know, right? Yeah. So
too many. You can edit it, and you're just like, I hate this book. No one's ever going to read it.
I know. Right. So I think I have maybe like 50 pages left to edit. I'm almost done. The book query and everything is ready to go I am now looking, as of right after Labor Day, my goal is to send it out to literary agents and just see what happens.
Oh, to get traditionally published.
I think I'd like to on this one. Now, I haven't done the traditional publisher, so I don't really know. I'm kind of just putting my toe in the water, you know, to see. But with this book, I feel like I might need to, just because of, I think if it wasn't so relevant right now, I don't know if I would. You know, like the first book, it wasn't even a consideration to do that. I just didn't want to go that way. Yeah. But this one feels different, like I'm supposed to, or I should. There's something intuitively that tells me I'm supposed to do this one that way. Because it does feel like a culmination of a life, really, you know, that kind of led me to this. And it does feel it has an important message. So, yeah, we'll see how that goes. So if any of your readers know a great literary agent, you know, pass that along. Yeah, it's kind of the memoir plus genre.
Well, I know of someone, but they're not, you know, the big houses. She's kind of, I think, like a smaller press, so I can pass that on to you.
Oh, I would love that.
I don't know at all how it works, but I can give you a name.
I appreciate that. It's always a great start. Absolutely.
Well, that's what
appreciate it.
I was gonna say, because that can be daunting. So have you researched like where you start?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I actually did this little like you know, online course thing just to understand the query and how to actually submit the, you know, the manuscript, and it was fantastic. It really helped. So anyway, having done that, I feel like, yeah, and I've done my research on it probably the whole last year. So I think I have it down, but like my understanding is you can send 100 out and you might get 2 that are interested.
Oh
So
yeah.
I've got to toughen up my skin a little bit because, yeah, I could be, thankfully I have a whole other career. I can focus on that while that's happening. So, and not be sitting there staring at the computer like, you know, waiting for that email. But yeah, it is a daunting task, supposedly.
You know, that is a good point though, because if it's relevant now,
Mm-hmm.
and let's say, I don't know how, I have no idea how long these queries take, but do you have a deadline to where you're like, look, if I don't hear anything by X, I'm going to have to go because the market will change, society
Yes.
will move on, and then I'm not so relevant anymore?
Yeah, I think I do. I haven't set what that date is. I think I would probably say I give myself 1 year of trying, because from what I've heard, like from that class, they're like, don't think it's going to be 2 months and you've got it done. Like, give yourself a year of sending it and sending it out. And, you know, yeah. So I think for me, probably end of next summer is when I'll say, okay, if it didn't work traditional publishing house, then I'm going to go a different direction with it. But
Yeah.
it feels like the right thing to do is to give it a shot, you know, to try. I don't know. What I notice more than anything is that, you know, having done the first book, is you have to market it yourself. I mean, it is all you. And yeah, and that's daunting as well, because that's like, it's a whole job in and of itself.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, it would be nice to have a literary agent who can then take the lead on this. They know this business. I don't. Hopefully they're kind of a guide. That's what I'm hoping on.
You know, and that's a challenge, right? That's what every indie author has. And so I listen to podcasts and webinars like all
Yes.
the time. And so they're saying, you know, gone are the days of the big five where they swoop in and they have this huge marketing. Like everybody now is like, who's your following? What are you bringing to the table? And if they put out 5 books, the big budget goes to like the Stephen Kings of the world.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You know, the known names get the marketing budget because, you know, they're known names and they sell books, right? They know like it's a guaranteed. Nora Roberts puts a book out, her loyal fans are going to do it, so they market. And so from like, you know, if you're not in the top, I don't even know, like 0.001%, you're getting no marketing dollars from, even if you do get signed. And so, yeah, even though you're traditionally published, you're still competing as like indies have to, you know, brand.
Exactly, it is. The only reason I like the idea of trying it though is I'm not so sure, like I don't know if I care which publisher gets it, but I do want a literary agent to lead the way. So that's my new thing. So, you know, and they'll kind of see and they'll say, yeah, we're not going to this big one because they're not going to look at it, you know, and that's fine. If they say, you know, we need to go to a smaller, that's fine. I just want, I feel like I've been doing this for so long that I need somebody to kind of take all my parts, you know, the podcast I do, the writing that and kind of merge it together. And I think an agent would do that, from what I understand.
You know who does a lot of self-help is Hay House.
I have heard that. Yes.
Yep.
They're on my list as well. Yeah, I've got a lot of them on. They say like, I mean, there's hundreds. If you go, you can go onto these sites. I can't recall the name of it. That little online thing I did help figure that out. But you can find like in your genre, and there's like hundreds. I mean, the list is endless of literary agents. So there's got to be somebody.
For those that are listening, do you remember what that course is that was so helpful for you?
Goodness.
Or who put it on?
Yes. Oh my goodness. I think it was, I know I should. something best-selling author. I don't know, and I'll comment on this after when I can pull up my computer and find it. I can't recall right now, but it was really helpful. And by so many examples that they offer, you start to see what is a good query letter, what is not so good. You know, you've got to do like the, you know, comparative analysis. What other books are even like yours, and how is yours different? How all that. Then you got to go chapter by chapter. I mean, you know, and it was overwhelming. It was like learning a new language. Really, I have never done that. Yeah, I mean, I know architecture like the back of my hand. This is new ground for me. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so you're talking about your brand.
Yeah. Yes.
And so are you looking for this book in particular to grow your brand?
I think so. I'm not so sure. Yeah, I do think I want it to, I don't know, I want it to kind of glue my brand together, I guess is the best way to say it. Like I want it to, there's so many different moving parts in it. And I feel like I've been, not intentionally, but subconsciously kind of starting all these different things for a purpose. And I feel like the book will grow the brand. Yeah, I think I'm wanting it to grow the brand and tie it all together, because then it makes sense. You know, the podcast that I do that's for women, by women, you know, all of these different parts that are about femininity and about how we evolve as women, all of these I feel like need to be tied together. Yeah, so I'm hoping the book will do that.
Almost like a life coach. You know how life coaching has different offerings under their brand, and they do have a podcast.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, yeah. I mean, the podcast we've been doing, it's called Chick Chat. I don't know if you've seen it. I still would love to have you on it. Yeah, I would love to have you on it. So, yeah, listen to them. But it's Chick Chat, and it's on Apple and Spotify, all of those. But it's Chick, yeah, Chick Chat, and it's a bright red with a cartoonish picture of a woman. Because I think there's a few others that aren't really still happening, but when you go to like Apple, you see all these. It's the one that's and it's by Unapologetically Karen is what it's called on there. But yeah, we've had some amazing guests. It comes out every 2 weeks, and it's been wild. The one coming up is coming out September 6th. They usually come out on a Wednesday. This one was so good that we did a two-parter, so it also goes the next day, and it's from someone, a teacher, an instructor that I did a pole dancing class from. And her understanding and sense of femininity is wild. And it was, I mean, it was interesting. It was so good that I let it go. We were talking, I don't know, like an hour and 30 minutes, which is really long, that I had to break it into two parts. But it's interesting. I think people are going to be like, huh, yeah. We have to put the little tag explicit because she is. So,
well, yeah. But I think, you know, I have a question, but I just want to make a comment real quick. When you're interviewing people and there's a, you know, shared energy or a connection, you get in a flow. I mean, there's many authors on here that I talk to, and that, you know, we always set aside an hour.
Yeah.
It almost always goes over. Because there's just such magic that happens when the conversation flows, and like-minded individuals are, you know, dialing in, or they're, you know, conversing like we are. And so it's really hard to be like, okay, time's up.
I know, right? Right. I know. And it's like, and they do say, like, I don't know, you know, you should stick to 30 to 45 minutes for a podcast. You're like doing our best. But sometimes, and that's how I felt when you and I did, had you live, because there was this just ease. And when you get like that, yeah, it is. You get right into that flow of it. So, yeah, people are going to like this one, I think. They're going to be bummed when it gets to the end of part one or episode one of her. Because then I jump in and they're like, sorry, guys, this is the end. But I promise part two is coming tomorrow. They're going to be like, oh, yeah. But, but I don't make them wait too long. It's coming out the very next day. We were going to make them wait 2 weeks to the next Wednesday release, but I don't think they'll wait. It's pretty juicy.
So let me take a half step back.
Yeah.
When did you start the podcast? Why did you start the podcast?
Yes. So I had done a podcast years ago. So this isn't the first one. This is my second. I had done the podcast years ago, and it was called Climbing the Ladder in Heels. And it was really about finding, strong women who are doing amazing things. And it was just amazing because, crazy stories and how they got there. And like, there was one woman that drives, and I'm not joking, the biggest truck in the world. It's like a 10-story high building. And she is like, it's crazy. And so that whole thing was really like just to find out about women, because I was in such a male-dominated industry, and I found such joy in like a sisterhood, because men are different. They, it's very kind of dry. You know what I mean? There's just not that same vibe. And so I did the podcast.
Okay, can I interrupt?
Of course.
Working in a male-dominated industry, I know that you have been harassed, felt up. We talked about that last time.
I haven't been felt up for anything. That's not me, though.
I have.
You have, yes. Oh, I thought you said I have.
Unwillingly. But when they figure out that you're not going to sleep with them, never,
right,
then you're cool. And you can be like bros.
That's true. It takes but I still think in my industry, they never want to be bros with you, because they just don't. It's just they're just not used to having women in architecture. So they almost don't know what to do with you, even if they realize they're not going to sleep with you and they have solved that. Like, they don't like, I think part of it is for contractors is the architect is has sort of the last say.
Yes.
Like, we check, are you following our drawings? Are you not? And we're going to call them out if they're not. They don't want a woman hovering over them. They don't like it. Yeah.
Nope.
So even if they know they're not sleeping with me, they don't like it. Yeah. They don't like it. So, but clients do, because they appreciate that you're stepping in for them. They appreciate that you're collaborating for them. All that feminine energy they love. I hear it all the time from clients. They're like, I bet, even like, I know this sounds almost chauvinistic, but it really is meant as a compliment from them. But they say all the time, you know how to design a kitchen better than a guy would. And I'm like, well, kind of, but I guess.
I'm a mom, I'm a grandmother, Exactly. Yeah, like, we know.
Yeah, exactly. My husband cooks at times, so it's a little different here. But yeah, so they understand it, but the contractors don't. They would love for you not to have a say in their work. Yeah.
So what happened to this old podcast? Do those episodes move to Chick Chat or no?
So they're still accessible on Apple and everything else.
Okay,
under
say the name again one more time.
Yes, it's Climbing the Ladder in Heels.
Love it.
And yes, it was a cute one, and it was great. And then my husband and I decided to leave California and move to Arizona. And I still had my practice in California as an architect, but I was opening a new office here, and something had to give. I could not. I was flying back and forth every other week to California to see those clients, those jobs, and also trying to build, the office here. And this one here is like a storefront. It's a lot, it's not like I was just doing architecture from my house here. It was a lot. Yeah. So something had to give. And Instagram and all that was building, and I thought I need to pause on the podcast for a bit. So I did. And then after a while, it just made sense, this whole new concept of really exploring this femininity related to the book is how Chick Chat started. And it started in March or April. It was on International Women's Day is the day we launched it.
Of this year?
Of this year, yes. So it's only been, and it's been great. The response has been amazing. So it's been very cool. Yeah.
And so do you have help with that? Do you do it on your own? Because you're talking really like 3 different jobs.
I know, it's crazy. I know. I do have a best, person. My right-hand person is Cambry Jukes, and she bounces through all these just like I do. So She does help. She lines up the podcast guests. I kind of give her some that I'm interested in, and then she reaches out, lines that up, communicates with them, schedules it. She also does interior design, so she does a lot of all the interior selection of materials, etc. I know she's all, you know, she's got her hand in all of this as well. The book, that's been on my own, but all of the social media, podcast, and interior design is her. So
And she's your
she's phenomenal.
personal assistant, correct?
Yeah, she's a personal assistant. She is an interior designer. She went to school for that, and yeah, she's kind of, yeah, she's amazing. She's a whirlwind of energy and just a wonderful like spirit about her. So yeah, she's been great. And I've always had an assistant in some regard. You know, some of them in the past had nothing to do with the architecture or interior design. They were more client correspondence, you know, letters, etc., emailing, answering phones. But Cambry really, yeah, there's a synergy between us that works really nicely. So in a lot of ways, I feel like she's, you know, she is like a daughter to me. I'm probably her work mom, and then she has her real mom. But that's the energy that we definitely share, yeah.
Well, because when you have someone in the boat rowing with you, oh my gosh, you get there to shore so much faster.
Yes. And it can be overwhelming. And what's nice is that, so I can bounce between the three sort of jobs, because I can be fully into the architecture working on a project, but I know the podcast stuff's not going to be left behind because she can jump over there for a bit, you know, and then when I'm in that, I might have her doing, you know, the interior design. So nothing sits still. Everything, we keep all the balls in the air. We just, you know, hand them off to each other. Yeah. Yeah, it works.
And so if someone wanted to be on your podcast or wanted to pitch themselves to you, where would they reach out to you?
So we do have, the easiest way for them is to email me. Just email me, and it would be Karen at unapologeticallykaren.com. And I get a lot of emails for different people. And I usually go through those, and then I'll forward the ones I'm like, this would be a good fit. I forward those to Cambry, and then we schedule. And it's such a simple process. It's always done remotely. All you need, the guest just needs a computer and a headset if possible, and that's it. Or just, you know, yeah.
I think one of the sites is called Podcast Guest, I think.
Yes. And then there's Radio Guest. That's the one we use the most, I would say, is Radio Guest.
Yeah.
They have the most traction. I don't know. We seem to, and I think why they're really good is they constantly send us like new people. They just go, these are the, you know, we think you'll be interested in these, and as opposed to us just searching, right? So they give us that, and then I'm like, wow, they start to see what what you keep responding to. They start to see what your category is or what you're interested in, and so they're doing a good job with that. So we've had amazing people. We have coming up, I interviewed this young girl. She was, I think she's now 10. She was 9 years old, and she was on the podcast. She was so remarkable that I read about her in an article on Epic Times, and it was about how she was bullied at school, so much so by these boys, and I think one other girl, so much so that, you know, one day her dad went to pick her up, and kids had pushed her off the stairs, all the way down a flight of stairs. I know.
Oh my God.
And all these things where the teachers were like, well, you know, she just was this kind little soul, but for whatever reason, you know, they would pick on her. So then they had her like line up separately, as opposed to getting the kids that were being, you know, jerks.
Yeah.
No, they were really isolating her. So her mom, after that day, when they pushed her down the flight of stairs, pulled her out of school and is homeschooling her. Yeah. But in homeschool, she has started a little business, and it's not just little anymore. She's just remarkable. She's one of those that will be like that empowered woman later, you know, that we all hope to get to. She's like on her way, and she is darling and just has it so together. It's yeah, and her it's just a crazy story. So she's on there very soon. She does candles, and so she's making candles. They're being produced. They're going out there. It got big enough that she has people running it now.
Oh my gosh,
I
love
know.
that.
It's crazy. And yeah, so she's on there. We've had somebody talk, the one that was so popular, I was surprised, talked about thyroid for women. That one had so many views because we all struggle with that, and probably around this age. So we've had that, yeah, all sorts. Yeah. So it's interesting. One is actually all about solo travel for women, which is a big new thing. I know.
It is. My sister is a huge adventurer. And she hiked Yosemite by herself. And I was like, that's not safe for bears,
right?
for humans.
I know. So this woman that was on kind of creates all these things for groups, or, you know, or for alone, but she knows how to make it safe, or, you know, because it's tricky, especially if you're doing like international travel right now, you know, and if you don't know the language. So she's got all these great tips. So she's on there. Yeah, we've had just a nice assortment. It's been, and I love doing the interviews because, I mean, I learn a ton each time. Yeah.
Oh, well, I was just thinking of that little girl, right? We talked about earlier in our interview. Life happens, right? So we were talking about divorce, but that whole bullying has forced her to move on to something that's far better.
It is. But I was also, her mom was on the podcast as well. And I was like, how did you do it? I mean, you know, like, I can't imagine starting to homeschool my child. Like, that'd be the fourth job I'd have. And I don't know if I'd be any good at that. I mean, that's a lot of pressure. Yeah. And it's remarkable. You know, yeah, sometimes life throws something at you and you just have to, yeah, you know, find a different direction. And she's thriving. It's a beautiful story. It really is. Yeah. Yeah.
I would imagine so. My neighbor has a child that's on the spectrum, and so he has 3 different things that he's on the spectrum for. And so they have always had him in special schools. Their goal is for him to be independent, to live independently.
Yeah.
And so one of the schools had said, we're done. We cannot help him anymore. I know. And he was probably about in 6th grade. And so she had to drop everything and stay home. And she's like, we just figured it out. Well, now he's salutatorian. He's back in private school, mainstream, not a special school. And he's now salutatorian.
Wow.
But she said if that school hadn't literally kicked us out, he would have been further behind.
Right. Probably the best thing that happened, though, at the time. Certainly didn't feel like it, I'm sure. Yeah. No, that's remarkable. Yeah. And it's neat to see these young people when you already see the signs that they have that, I don't know what it is. You know, it's a combination. It's not just drive. It's drive, but it's like this vitality and spirit, tenacity. You know, it's just, there's something, you just see that energy with them, and it's thoughtful, and it's smart, and it's really awe-inspiring. She really inspired me. That day I did the interview with her, and it's coming out, I think it's maybe end of September. I don't recall exactly. They're all, Cambry has them all lined up. So yeah, thank God for her. But yeah, she really inspired me. I mean, that the rest of that week after that interview that I did with her for the podcast, I mean, I kept thinking about it, and I kept thinking about it. I'm like, what a remarkable young woman who one day we're going to see something great from her. I just know it. Yeah.
And that's what's so exciting. Yeah. Okay, so what is next for you? I feel like you're a rolling stone that gathers no moss.
That's funny. I like that. I don't know. I think right now I'm putting soon in September, putting a ton of energy towards the book and seeing where that takes me. And right now we're a little inundated with architecture work, so that'll keep me busy. And I don't know yet. Those are where I'm at right now. Yeah, I don't know. And I don't know what happens if you love writing, which has now become a thing for me. You know, what do you do? Do you start? I've seen a lot of memoir writers then turn to fiction. I have no idea how to write fiction, so I don't know. We'll see. I'm not sure I can do that. Yeah, it'd be something to explore, but I'm not ready for that yet.
So there's no third book in you yet.
Not in me yet, right? Some more life has to happen, and then it'll be in me. Yeah, I don't have a third book in me right now. This one has kind of everything in it for me. But yeah, but who knows? You know, I wouldn't have thought I would even write a book, 15 years ago. I mean, it's crazy to me. Yeah. So it's
So on the architecture side,
mhm.
what kind of projects do you do? Because I know, like,
Yeah.
with interest rates, you had mentioned homes, and I know interest rates are sky high, and so I know that
Yes.
has kind of slowed down because I have a very
Yes.
dear friend who is a custom home builder, and her projects are about 5 million,
Hmm.
and so she's slowed down as well because
Yes.
hers are either like all cash buyers or that's it.
So yeah, and you know what? The same thing happened in 2008, and it took 50% of architects in this country out of business. So I was very
Wow.
thankful to have made it through that, and it was not easy. It was a serious struggle to stay in business during that. That was awful. But I learned some things then, which was, diversifying is key.
Mhm.
And even just in architecture. So what
Yeah,
I saw then, yeah, and what I'm seeing now is that interest rates are very high, and people and new construction, new homes is definitely down. We do have some anyway right now, but for the most part, that part is a little bit down. But remodeling is not, and people still do have now some home equity lines of credit, which went away back in 2008.
yeah.
That was the biggest hit then. And so I'm seeing that people are still doing that. And plus, all those people sat at home during COVID and were like, I hate my house. That kitchen needs to be redone. So we're getting so much of that, and then they all
That's what
now have
she
a home office.
said. She said everyone sat at home and they're like, I hate these walls. I hate this.
Yes,
Why do we have to found molding? Blow out the bathroom.
right? It's all remodeling now, and they also are looking, or additions where they now need home offices because a lot of people are still working from home.
Yeah, yeah.
And you've got like two people and they're like, we've been making do, we both sit at the dining room table, but then if one's on the phone, the other has to walk outside. So it changes. And then we also do a lot of tenant improvement commercial projects. So the building I'm in is a mixed-use building. So upstairs is all residential and downstairs is all commercial storefronts, and we've done most of them there. So we've done a salon, a spa, all kinds of things, a restaurant, all kinds of things. So, and usually when commercial is down, residential is up, or vice
Mhm.
versa. So that diversifying was key, and I didn't have that in 2008. It was all residential.
Well, and it's cyclical, right?
Yes.
When new construction's down, remodels are up.
Yeah, I
And
think
I'd
so.
imagine that variety also keeps you engaged because you have what, 30 years in architecture?
Yes. Yeah, 33 years.
Yeah, and so sometimes if you're doing the same thing, you're like, it gets to be like a blueprint. You're like, okay, we'll do white walls and Carrera marble, and
Absolutely.
and it
And
gets kind of
it
monotonous.
does, especially what I loved was our move to Arizona really kind of spiced it up for me, because California, I was like, if I do another tall, skinny, 25 foot by, 80 feet, there's only so much you can do. I'm sick of it,
Well,
and
it's a formula. You're
yes,
just
it
doing
is.
like the same, countertops the same, flooring the
Yes.
same. Yep.
Yeah, and I felt a little bit restricted, whereas here there's land, and so the amount of creativity and how you can create that building is so different. There's so many directions to go in, and you're not so restricted with this little postage stamp of a lot. So a lot is so small, and you're all next to each other, like immediately. Like in the area that I worked a lot in, you have a 3-foot side setback, and your neighbor has a 3-foot. Okay, so you could literally reach out and touch each other. I mean, it's that bad.
I always see those in California, and I'm like, how do you paint the side of the house?
Yes, I know.
You know,
They have to
all the
put
way up, right?
scaffolding.
Because it's
It's crazy. Yeah. And so it's been different to have this. And it's also interesting, like, you know, you always want to face, in California, you pretty much always want to face west. That's going to be your most dramatic, the sunsets, etc. In Arizona, that's not the way you want to face. It's just too darn hot that way. Yeah. You want to face east. East is the best because you get that. And like our master bedroom and our living room face that way. The morning, the sunrise is just magical. And most homes don't even face, you know, towards the west. So it's interesting. Yeah. It's been nice to sort of have that new challenge to figure it out again. You know, it's definitely inspiring.
It's so funny you talk about lighting because, again, you know, my home builder friend, she is, she's Mexican. She's from Mexico, her family. Her second husband is British. They could not be more opposite.
Yeah.
And so she talks about, she's done some projects up in Colorado, and you know, in Colorado, you have to have your driveway face the south because if you don't have a heated driveway and you face north, you're never going to get out of your house.
Oh, interesting. Didn't
it's
even know that. Interesting.
Nice. But when you talk about the sun, she said one time we were walking through one of her houses, and she's like, I'm putting another one on the market. Do you want to come walk through it? I'm like, of course I want to.
How cool. Yeah.
I'm over there racing over there. But one time I got into this debate, him and her, about the lighting in Spain is different than the lighting coming in Italy.
Really? I'm sure, but I don't know it.
I know, because
wow.
You know, they'll go for 2-3 months over about, you know, I'm in Houston, they'll go 2-3 months to take their child. And then they are looking for materials and things to, you know, ship over and stuff like that. So they'll be gone the whole summer. And so, yeah, they got into this debate about this, you know, the sunrise in Spain is different than the sunrise in Italy.
Wow. And do you think, who did you believe?
Well,
which one is right?
Because she said the sunlight in Spain in the morning is more golden. And in Italy, it has more of a blue hue to it.
That is so interesting. I did not know that.
I was like,
wow. Okay, I'm going to look into that now. I've been to both countries, but I never realized that really.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Haven't spent enough time there to probably realize, you know, you spend like 10 days, that you may not figure it out in 10 days. Yeah, that's very cool.
She does all these houses, the way she does it, you know, there's lots of, you know, the privacy lighting the privacy windows that go along the top to allow the light to come in.
Yep.
Not, you know, but you have privacy. She loves to do that in all the bedrooms. So, you know, even though you have like your windows for, you know, fire and stuff, you know, access to the outside.
Yeah, you've got the egress window, right.
But, and so like in the, you know, each one of her closets, she does those too. Or the master always has a huge closet window, but she'll do a stained glass. She loves to do stained glass over. So, you know, these houses are stunning, right? So you have, when you walk into the master bath, it's ginormous. It's its own room. And then she has the center set bathtub, you know, that's just like its own focal piece. And then she'll do a huge stained glass. So it's private, but allows
interesting. Yeah, and we do the clear story, the upper windows, the clear story windows. We do those a lot because, you know, you can get that light and all the stuff I do, every home I've done, and any project, tons of light, and it's key to get 2 directions of light. It changes the quality of light dramatically. If all the light is coming from one direction, it's very different.
Well, it's dark.
So it's just not as good. Yeah, it's dark, but it's like it multiplies more than, you know, you get another window, but it's not just multiplied by 2. It just all of a sudden that entire quality of light changes. It is maybe more golden. It does turn a little bit different. And
well,
so
she does some
clear stories are everything.
When they do these, you know, stained glass, I mean, they're huge. what she figures out where the light is because she wants it to hit and then imprint on the floor.
Oh, I love that. Very nice. Wow.
So,
That sounds
so
good.
you get like a dual effect. And she goes, I get, what does she say? Like double my money's worth or something like that.
Right, right. I bet.
Yeah.
No, that's fantastic. Yeah, yeah. It sounds like she's seeing all the components and doing them artistically. That's nice. Yeah.
So she obviously studies light and how it comes in. And, and I find that fascinating because you guys are unique where you can just look at plans one dimensional with, and oh my God, these plans.
Right. I know.
And then figure out from a blueprint how the light will come in and where to put your mosaic in order for it to be on the floor.
Yeah.
It's just fascinating. I know. It's really watching genius at work.
It's interesting because I think some of it comes from just experience doing it enough. You start to see that. And some of it though is, I know for me, it's just, it's just natural instinct. I don't know. Yeah, it's for a lot of people, it can be. And then there's other people that can't visualize it at all. And most of my clients can't. So,
exactly.
And I always have to, so we do everything with 3D so they can see it all. And then, construction is no surprise because that should never be a surprise. Yeah. They should already kind of know what it looks like, so we usually do renderings. Yeah, and that helps. Yeah, but you do, I can see a plan and I already can visualize that entire space, what it's going to feel and look like. And that's just, I don't know, it's just natural to me, but I don't know if it always was. That's funny. I haven't thought about that, but for decades it has been. Yeah.
Well, it's your talent, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I love it. I was 16 and I knew I wanted to be an architect. So.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you because that is, 33 years. And so, I feel like we have a lot of work to do still with, equality in the workplace. So I was going to ask, how in the world did you even know you wanted to go into that?
It's funny because it was the Career Center in my high school. I was a sophomore. I was a sophomore. And so how old is that? Like 15-ish or so?
Yeah, 15, 16.
Yeah. And there were at the Career Center, you could sign up for this field trip. I never even went to the Career Center normally. I happened to stroll in one day and I saw it listed and it was women in architecture. And when you think about that now, that it was a thing for women back then, I'm kind of shocked. It's amazing to me. So I went and there were, I don't know how many other kids there were there, but some people I didn't know. I think maybe we stopped at another high school, picked up a couple more. And this one woman kind of showed us a couple of offices and then took us to a job site. And it just was the whole thing. I was like, that's it. And because I knew that I loved the artistic side of everything. I liked to paint and draw, but my strength was probably my math skills and that whole side. And my dad was a mechanical engineer. And so I definitely had that analytical thinking. And it just, after that day, I was like, it merges the two perfectly. And I came home and I remember saying to my mom, I absolutely know what I'm doing for my life. So, which is pretty rare. Like, had I not gone on that day, I don't know, would I have, we had always gone, my parents also had a travel agency. My mom was a travel agent for a long time and we would travel to Europe every winter. And so I definitely had like a thing for architecture there, but I never, I always loved it photographed. Yeah. But I didn't really even think about being an architect until that field trip. So that was a pretty pivotal day. Yeah. It changed the course of my life fully. I was going to either be, which now I think, what was I thinking? Either a lawyer. I hate confrontation like that. What did I think? Or a psychiatrist. And I'm like, oh my God, I don't want to hear problems all day long. So I would be miserable had I not, gone on that wonderful field trip. It
was ordained that you would.
It was, I think so. It was, definitely found my spot.
That's awesome.
Yes.
I have enjoyed our time.
Oh,
I don't know if you have a few more minutes for rapid fire.
Okay. For what? Rapid fire questions?
Rapid fire questions.
Perfect. Okay, let's try. Oh my God. Okay, I'm ready. Okay. I think. Got it.
They're like geared to you as an author. So do you do paperback or e-reader?
Say that again. I couldn't hear you for a minute.
Do you do paperback or e-reader?
Oh,
what do you
no,
read?
paperback.
Really?
Yes.
So do you build libraries into your architectural plans?
Some, yes.
Ooh.
I like the real book. I don't know why it is. I can't, I've tried the e-reader, the Kindle, it just doesn't work for me. No, definitely paperback, or hard book is my favorite.
Oh, yeah. They're nice. When you wrote your 2 books, did you plot them out or did you pant your way through them?
I did not plot them out. Just kind of made my way through it.
That's your same with the first one. It was just like, go with the flow.
Yeah. They both have just been a kind of a flow. Mm-hmm.
And so you're writing these in first person or third person?
First person.
Yeah, deep point of view, I imagine.
Yeah.
Do you like to write alone? Do you write with a partner?
Alone. I like to write alone. I need like quiet time, and then I like to write alone.
Okay, so you write in silence then?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, absolute silence. I can't even like have a bunch of music on. No, I need silence. Yeah. Well, unless it's like instrumental, but instrumental music is fine, and I love that. But yeah, anything with lyrics, oh God, no. I have to turn it off. Because then I'm like, oh, I like that lyric, but what am I writing? It's like, yeah, I can't.
Oh yeah, sometimes I'll write the lyric in my book and I'm like,
That's
how it goes.
Yeah.
Writing with the deadline, or do you write at your own pace?
At my own pace.
Okay. And then these are all present day. So
okay.
Yep, that is all I have for my rapid
Okay,
fire.
wow, good. And that was amazing. Can I ask you this? So what are you working on right now?
Oh gosh. Okay, so I have my 3rd book in my series, the Canyon series, is releasing Friday, September 1st. So 8 days. I know.
Oh, that's exciting. Okay, soon, like days.
Yeah, so that comes out. I just sent the EPUB to my, the e-reader to my street team. They're kind of like my brain trust of ladies. They're wonderful. There's 7 of us all together, and so I sent it over to them today. And then I'll have it out available for ARC readers, the advanced reader copies. That'll probably go up either tomorrow or Saturday. Yeah.
Oh my goodness, that's exciting. Oh, I have to read it. That sounds really exciting. I will read the e-reader for that. Don't worry. I have both options, but yeah. I feel like I sometimes get lost in the e-reader thing. I don't know why that is. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I can't describe. I feel like because I can't see the book and the chapters and flip through it, I struggle with it. I don't know.
You're like just tactile.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Well, okay, so I have a confession.
Yeah.
I am starting a new series. So my street team already knows what the 4th book in my series looks like. So that's the one that comes out on September 1st is Hamilton. And then Isla is the 4th book. And so I already revealed the cover to my street team because obviously it's in the e-reader, the e-book that I'm sending them, and so they're going to see it. And so it is honestly my best cover yet.
Oh my goodness, I'm excited.
Yeah, this graphic designer, she knocked it out of the ballpark.
Really?
So I can't wait.
Ooh.
She's so talented. But she did say, I love you, but we're breaking up because she is actually, she's going to be starting her own series. And so we're going, which is great, right? I mean,
of course, I know. It is, but it's also like, I know what you mean. Yeah, it's hard because you have your little team, which is, I don't know, for me, that team is family, and then you lose one, you're like, oh, I know. It hits me like a punch in the gut every time it happens, but I will say it's funny, every assistant I've had, except for one, has been a female, and they have all left because their husband or boyfriend moved out of state, and so they go with, and so I'm always like, yeah. So I've had that happen repeatedly. They've moved to New Mexico or to San Diego, or
Well, we were talking back and forth, me and her, because I was like, oh my gosh, so she sent me some of my like basic files, like my author name, so she was trying to like, it's the slow, long goodbye kind of a thing. And so we were going back and forth, and she's talking about her series, and I said, well, I'm starting another series. So I'll have my dark romance, but I'm starting like a little bit darker, like a little bit naughtier one, where it's going to be like older women and younger men.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
A little bit. Those are going to be shorter because, the dark romances, like I think Hamilton came in at like 134,000 words for a romance, which is, so long. But these are just
normal for what is the normal number for like romance?
Like 80 to 100.
Wow. Yeah.
But I can't. I'm wordy, and so I send it to my alpha readers, and I'm like, trim this back. I do not know how to do it, and so they'll tell me what to cut, and I have 2 really brutal alpha readers, and they're like, you talk too much.
That's got to be a love-hate relationship with them. I'm sure you're like, you're good for me, but I don't like it.
They're great.
That's hard.
I had 4, and 2 of them were my hype ladies, and they're like, oh my God, I love it. It's great. I'm like, okay, y'all both fired. You can move to my marketing team.
Yeah, we don't need those. There are enough cheerleaders for us. Yeah. Now I'm going to ask you, do you sit and write every day, or when and how do you write? Alone or?
I do.
I
do. Yeah, I write every day. Trying to get 3,000 words a day. Sometimes I don't. Sometimes they don't flow. Sometimes it's, ugly and brutal.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah.
Other times you're just in the zone, right? You've been there before, and you're just like, this is magic.
Yeah. Yes. And other times you're like, what am I trying to say? I know. I see, for me, I stop writing on those days. I'm like, forget it. I gotta go do architecture instead. Yeah. It's the days when it flows, and I'm like, okay, stay with it. Yeah.
Okay, but here's my confession. So
yes.
I have a lot. I have a really lovely friend network. I have tons of friends, and I tend to have more guy friends than girls, just because, like you say, you kind of lose women friends for, children or commitments, that kind of thing. And so one of my friends, he was like, who is Karen Webb? He texted me. And I said, why? He goes, is she local? And I said,
oh no. That is funny.
I know. And I said, she is not local.
No.
That he's 39.
Funny. Yeah, no, I'm happily married.
I told him that. I said, let me start at the very top. She's married. End of story. I don't need to go into like number 2, 3, or 4. Like,
right. It'll stop right there. And he is the love of my life, which is interesting because had I not gone on this journey and learned what I learned about femininity, I don't know if we would have ever clicked. But it is timing and learning that's about when I learned, why am I picking these weak men? And I really kind of thought, I'm not going to repeat my patterns. And then he showed up. So, yeah.
That's so sweet.
But tell him thank you. I appreciate the niceties, but yeah.
I know. I was like, okay, you need to back off. And
how has he seen, or did he see our interview, or?
Yeah, so he is, it's hilarious. I have one guy friend who reads all my stuff. That's
awesome.
I have 3 of my guy friends that are engineers, and one of them is like a chemical, well, let's see, he's a chemical and a mechanical, and then he has his master's. Wow. So the dude is just smart. Yeah. And so he always critiques my Instagram, and he's like, that wasn't that good of a post. It could have been more creative. And I'm like,
that would make me nuts.
I was like, you're an engineer. You're not normally like a creative. And so I have, so he's my younger engineer friend. I have a smidge older engineer friend. He is he's a computer and so my other friend is a electrical and chemical engineer. Mm-hmm. My other friend is a mechanical and computer. Anyway.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
He reads all my book. So he has to go to Taiwan a lot for work, and he's just like, I need a book. So he will come over to my bookshelf, get one of my books, and read it. I was like, you're not my target audience.
Right, right. That's so cool though when it's not, but it's still, there's still that hooked. That's great though.
And then
that's cute.
The guy who wanted to know if you were single and local, he always is on these lives. He was like, I was watching your live last night, and you know what I thought you did wrong, or do you know what I think you should do this? And I'm just like, what are you doing?
It's so hard to do all this social media that, like, to be critiqued at it, I'd be like, I don't need to hear it. It's hard to just get it out there.
And then I have my best friend. He's always in my business, and so I was talking to him 2 nights ago, because I've been working on this younger guy, older women series, right. And I have a book, I don't know, I think I have like 15,000 words in it, and then I had to take a back seat because I got to launch Hamilton. And so he calls last night, he goes, okay, here's what I'm thinking we do. And so he's my best friend, and he's always in my like entrepreneur business with me. He's like, you know what I think you should do? I think you should do it. So it's hilarious because these 4 gentlemen are not my target audience.
Right, at all. And what would you say your target audience is? Oh, it's definitely women, but I mean an age bracket or?
So what I have found or received feedback from my readers is it's 2 different kinds. Mm-hmm. It's women that tend to be in their 20s. They go on dates, they get their hair, makeup, they look beautiful. They go out on a date looking for their book boyfriend.
Yes. Usually
they find these guys on a dating app. It's a total bust. They come home, shower, wash off their makeup, climb into bed with my book.
With the book.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yes.
So that's one. And then the second is usually married women mm-hmm. that are, there's, not a whole lot of romance left because they're either busy working, they're busy raising kids. And so by the time they go to bed, he may or may not already be asleep, or there's just ships passing in the night, and they're looking for romance.
Interesting. That's great. Those are the 2. I would say those 2, I don't know if mine, go to bed with a book or not, or whatever, but I would say those are my 2 target audiences too. There's some like 25 to 30-year-olds, and then mm-hmm. we jump to the like 45 to 60. Yeah. Definitely. That's interesting. Yeah.
So neither of those are for my 4 boys that are in my life.
Yes. Well, nice to have another opinion.
Oh, they're hilarious. And, they know my kids. I mean, we're good friends. It's interesting. I'm single. All 4 of them are single, but I'm lucky. None of us are interested. We've already been through all that. And so
pretty rare. That's really rare. I find that I think it's tough to have relationship with the opposite sex because usually there's that undercurrent that, they want to sleep with you. And so it's interesting that you've mastered it. That's good.
I think because honestly, I have been in such a male-dominated industry. I just get along. I don't say get along. That's maybe a harsh word, but I don't know. I just gravitate towards them, or they me, or something like that.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not an emotional person. I'm not a sensitive person, and so I don't know why it is. I know my daughter. She's just like, it is so unusual how many guy friends you have. And, I'm divorced, and her dad will comment on how many guy friends I have, and I'm just like,
that's funny.
It works.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I really don't. That's interesting. I don't. I don't know why. I have to think about that. Yeah, I really don't. The guy friends in our circles are, usually, well, now that I am married again, so they're usually couples. Yeah.
No, it's interesting because I have my girls squad. There's, which is really tight.
Thank God for that. Yes.
And then I have this, there used to be about 15 of us, and we used to call ourselves Cougars, Cubs, and Gays.
Oh, okay. Oh my God. We call ourselves the Cougars. Yes. And then we have one gay male in it. That's exactly it. They're like the lifesavers in your life, I think. For me, they have been.
Well, we've kind of shrunk, attrition through life and
Yes.
people move and just
That's
different things
true.
happen. We're down to, I guess there's about 10 of us now. And
Wow,
so,
that's a
my
lot.
daughter, uh,
How many
there
were
used to
there
be
to begin with?
15. 15?
15? That's
Mhm.
wow. No, ours started with 5 or actually 6, and we're down to 4, but
Yeah.
that's just fine. Yeah.
Yeah. No, so anyway, yeah, so my children seem different, like, I guess because I get along with most everybody. I I'm like I am not the extrovert of the group. I mean, there are people that are way more
Oh,
extroverted than
really?
me.
Wow.
Oh
That's
yeah.
funny.
Oh
Wow.
yeah.
Oh my God, I
And
just
so
see my cousin from Chile is on and saying hello. That's awesome. I love
oh,
that that happens. Hi, Pamela. I just want to say that because I haven't seen her in years and we really see each other like this. It's great. Yeah,
nice.
really nice.
So
Yeah.
anyway, yeah, so it works out well. I
That's
needless
great.
to say, I have a really nice support system.
Yes.
And so I can run, I just figure out like who would be up for my zany idea and let me call them and be like, hey, here's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, that's great. Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you know what, the more I think as life goes on, the more as I get older, that sisterhood is so important. And I've really started to see that. It just yeah, and I think I lost my mom. It's been about a year and a half. And I think when that happened, you start to, it's like the strongest female connection you have in your life is gone. You
Mhm.
really need your female sisters to circle around you because I mean, for me, it just rocked my world. I mean, we were best friends. It was so painful and it felt like that sisterhood was not there anymore. So yeah, it's key. It is. And I value it even more now than I did before. Yeah.
Oh yeah. And I think it's hard as you age, people do move away and they move on, or,
Mm-hmm.
your interests change, or you outgrow people, or they, outgrow you. So it's hard to maintain relationships at any level.
It is. It really is. Yeah, it is. And we all get busy and yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
Everything kind of, it's hard to carve out that time to, for when it matters. So yeah.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I love this because I feel like having met you, that your energy is beautiful. And I loved the first one where I interviewed you, then this, and then I am going to get you on my podcast.
Thank you.
Okay.
You're
Maybe after the
sweet.
book comes out.
Yeah, we will stay in each other's DMs. How's that?
Perfect. I like that. Very, very good.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I'm going to put
Oh,
this
I
up
think it froze.
tonight. It keeps freezing, I know. I
Okay.
think that
I
the
know it
interview
was
is like, we're
just a
done.
minute there, but I caught you. Okay, well, thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure. I loved it.
Thank you so much, Karen. Have a good night.
Okay. Bye.